Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day so far. I would like to welcome you to today's session. Today, we're going to be talking about securing Florida's critical transportation modes. I'm pleased to have representatives here from Cyber Florida and the Idaho National Laboratory to be bringing us this information. And speaking of LTAP Center, let me tell you a little bit about our center. So LTAP is a program that is jointly funded by FDOT and FHWA. There's an LTAP in each one of the 50 states. There's also one in Puerto Rico. Here in Florida, we're currently housed in Tampa. We've been here for 5 years, but we do serve the entire state of Florida. These are just some of the services that we offer to our local agencies at no cost to you. Our website is the best place to go to learn more about us. It's floridaltap.org. On there, you can find our training calendar that has not only our trainings, but those of other agencies as well. And our recorded sessions, you can navigate to recorded webinars, and I think we have almost 250, if not more, on our website right now. These are all at no cost, so I encourage you to check those out, and you can also request certificates after you're done viewing. And if you need technical assistance, you've got some kind of issue that you're facing, or you need some type of training, just fill out our technical assistance request form. That'll come directly to us, and we will be glad to assist you. I also wanted to tell you about our 23-24 needs assessment survey. You may have gotten an email or two from us about this. We've just put the link in chat. This is the survey that we issue every year. It goes out to all of our folks in Florida, and we want to hear back, what type of training are you needing for the upcoming year? We use the results from this to plan out our training for the upcoming fiscal year. So we really appreciate your time. It takes about 10 minutes to complete, and we would love to have your feedback. All right, we're on social media, FLLTAP, so I encourage you to like and connect with us there. All right, without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to our presenters today. So Kiriana is going to get the screen all set up, and Kiriana, I'll kind of hand it over to you to facilitate and take over things from here.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Emilio, you should now have control of the presentation. You'll just need to click on the screen once.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll talk a little bit first about what is Cyber Florida. So like Qatar, Cyber Florida is a state center. We were created in 2014 by the state legislature, and our mission is to make Florida a national leader in cybersecurity. And what are the missions? Well, they're education, research, and outreach. We also have cybersecurity public policy where we can chip in or provide our 2 cents about where we think that cybersecurity should go. But before I continue any more with the description of what we do, I think we should have a short intro from the panelists. Hi, I'm Emilio Salaverria. I have been with Cyber Florida since July of 2022. And I'm one of the lead planners and project managers for the Cybersecurity Critical Infrastructure Risk Assessment that the state of Florida assigned to us in July last year. And you'll hear more about that as we continue on with this webinar. My previous employment includes the Tampa Electric Company as Emergency Management Director, Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation as the Global Act Safety Manager, the Tampa Port Authority as the Director of Safety and Training, and Tampa Fire Rescue, where I retired as the Chief of Special Operations. I want to now ask Tim Klett with Idaho National Lab to turn on his camera and unmute and give a short intro about himself. Tim?
Thanks, Emilio. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Klett. I've spent about the last 25 years working within the National Laboratory system. I'm currently at Idaho National Laboratory. I've spent those 25 years supporting the Department of Homeland Security in various capacities, primarily supporting the advancement of secure and resilient critical infrastructure, both from a physical security and cybersecurity perspective. And so Emilio and his team at Cyber Florida has partnered with us at Idaho National Lab to leverage some of the capabilities that we've worked on in support of the Department of Homeland Security. And we're happy to be here supporting Cyber Florida and their initiative in helping the state of Florida become more secure and resilient.
Thank you, Tim. Jim, can you unmute and turn on your camera and introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thanks, Emilio. I'm Jim Aldrich. I'm a career intelligence officer. I was in the Marine Corps for 28 years as an intelligence officer, retired in 1998, and then spent 24 more years working for the National Security Agency. Retired last summer. In some of my jobs in the Marine Corps and at NSA, I worked in education and training. Most recently at NSA, I was the deputy commandant and the provost for National Cryptology University. So when I looked at something else I might want to do, I ended up here at Cyber Florida the same month as Emilio, July of 2022, to lead our education and training efforts. And I'll talk more about that later. We've got several different programs, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about those this morning.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tim. So a little bit more about Cyber Florida and our education piece. We actually have programs at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. We're working with over 48 school districts in the state, and we're trying to build that workforce development pipeline to develop cybersecurity workers and to fill those work roles for the future. We're working with a lot of partners, including the state, private industry, so we can deliver a lot of this curriculum to the teachers so they can deliver the curriculum to the students. We work with all the universities in the state. We work with most of the colleges in the state so we can make sure we're preparing the next generation for their cybersecurity roles. So what are we talking about? I'm talking about cybersecurity and the transportation sector. Why is it so important to protect the transportation sector? That is a critical component of our lifeline sectors is transportation. And transportation is made up of a variety of subsectors. We are talking to you about most likely mass transit. So our bus routes, we're talking about mobility in the cities. We're talking even statewide mobility, which could be through rail or even aviation. We're talking traffic control systems, monitoring systems. Sometimes I'm sitting at a red light and I'm thinking, why is this light red and the one in front of me green? This should be timed. And I know they are, but sometimes they just don't get it perfectly synchronized. And that's okay. I know they're working on it. So what is it? Why are we so vulnerable? Well, if we can shut down transportation in a community, you effectively have created gridlock, and there's very little that can be done. We are working to present a risk assessment that is paid for by the state of Florida, so you can participate in it and you can learn about your vulnerabilities and address them. So I just read today that the seaport of Australia finally have gotten back to operation since they've been working over the weekend from a cyber attack. Imagine that. Seaports are another critical component as far as moving cargo in and out of our community, our country, that would paralyze us if we didn't have the goods and services that we needed. We're also trying to protect the sensitive data. This disruption could be localized or it could be statewide and even be nationwide. You can see there's 30 fixed routes and 18 rural public routes of transportation in the state. And a lot of people depend on those forms of transportation. If we were to eliminate them, we would significantly impact the bottom line and the GDP of the state. We have 123 miles of centerline roads, a lot of them controlled by signage, wayfinding, traffic lights, directionals. All that could be impacted by a cyber attack if it were to get into one of our systems that monitor the traffic. So further on, why we're transportation is a target. Well, it's the big impact. It is the low through but big impact that they're looking for. These terrorists, I'm calling them terrorists because they really are. They're cyber criminals. They are looking to create havoc. They want to disrupt our way of life. They want to take money from us to improve their lifestyle. A lot of these cyber criminals live in third world nations, and if they were to get, say, $10,000 from someone in the US, that is a lot of money in a lot of areas where they live. So it's very profitable. There's a lot of financial incentive. Ransomware is just taken off. It has increased exponentially over the last couple of years. And Tim will be able to talk a little bit more about what we're doing to help reduce that risk. We're trying to educate you as a transportation sector entity or employee or contractor or customer about ways to protect yourself. We have to have the mentality is that the things you do at work to protect the company is going to protect you at home as well. Transportation is an ecosystem. We have the Internet of Things, where a lot of things are connected to the internet. There's information technology, which is typically HR, payroll, procurement. And then there's operational technology, which would be more about your traffic monitoring systems, your incident control systems, and your SCADA systems. Different technologies, but these criminals know about both, and they want to attack both. So they can attack a water department, they can attack a transportation center, a hospital. It doesn't matter to them who you are or whether you're a public or private entity. They're looking to gain access to your system, learn and steal information, and possibly make you pay for it. So in a further threat landscape, you may think that you're a small agency and you're not a target, but that is not true. We have had small cities in the state, small counties in the state get hit with ransomware. So it doesn't matter. You got to stop thinking that because you're small, you're not a threat or a target. That is not true. Oftentimes, these cyber criminals will get into the smaller cities or smaller counties, smaller businesses as a way to jump to a larger one, because let's face it, everyone in the critical infrastructure sector, we're all connected, and we are all interdependent. We all are connected to electricity, we all use water, we all use transportation, we all use financial sector. It's just a huge web of interconnectivity that we all rely on. And a compromise in one area could easily lead to a compromise in another area. We have done an assessment and we've had a pretty good response, but we need a lot more information. And some of the interesting findings is, as you can see, Florida is second in business email compromise, with over $180 million stolen. Was another interesting thing is most of our findings were listed under risk management. Those are the weak areas. Those are the areas that need improvement, is risk management. We do pretty good on respond and recover, but it's the managing the risk before the incident happens is where our weak areas are, and we need to focus a lot of attention to improve our scores. Since Florida is a retirement state, you have a lot of 60+ individuals in the state, and they are very targeted easily and fall victim to these scams and cyber criminals very easily. And you can see how much money they've stolen from them as well. As far as ransomware, we added the ransomware readiness assessment component to our risk assessment, and 23% of all the entities that participated in our risk assessment don't even meet the basic level of ransomware readiness. That is very interesting, and it's very alarming because we're talking at the very basic levels about protecting yourself from ransomware. So now I'm going to ask Tim if he would turn on his camera and speak a little bit about what we're doing and how we're using this cybersecurity evaluation tool in order to help you protect yourself. Tim?
Sure thing, Emilio. Yeah, so before I dive into that aspect of it, I kind of wanted to just tell a quick story of something that's pertinent to both the transportation sector, but also safety in general. And it takes us back to the mid-'60s when Ralph Nader actually authored a book titled Unsafe at Any Speed. And in that book, Nader called out auto manufacturers for basically not building safe vehicles or not incorporating safety into the vehicle manufacturing process. And the book actually prompted new seatbelt laws across the nation and also led to the creation of the U.S. Department of Transportation. I think that's a bit grandiose of a statement, but I think it was part of sort of the groundswell that led to the U.S. DOT being created. And so I see us in a similar environment today with our cyber devices as we were with our vehicles 60 years ago, right? So software and hardware vendors, along with federal, state, and local agencies, they're trying to create safer and more secure cyber environments, and they're doing this through enhanced products and services, along with policies. But ultimately, falls on the end user, right, to put on their seatbelt, so to speak, and operate those safely and securely, right? So no matter how safe, secure your car is, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, if the wrong thing happens, it's not going to be a good day for you. So there's also that corollary with operating any cyber environment. You know, the manufacturers can only do so much, right? You need to have this organizational culture of security, cybersecurity built in, right? And everyone in an organization needs to understand the importance of maintaining a secure and resilient cyber environment. And a means of ensuring and codifying that secure culture is really to conduct risk assessments. These risk assessments assist in identifying areas of strengths and weaknesses and can help prioritize how to spend limited time and resources on those improvements. And so what we'll talk about today is the Cyber Florida Critical Infrastructure Risk Assessment and how we can help you do just that. This no-cost assessment leverages the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA's Cybersecurity Evaluation Tool, or CSET. And it does that by prompting the assessor with really two different groups of questions. That the first set of questions is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. And that framework is voluntary guidance based on existing standards, guidelines, and practices that help organizations better manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. And in addition to that, it was designed to foster risk and cybersecurity management communications amongst both internal and external organizational stakeholders. That's important because not only do you need to make sure that you're practicing sound cybersecure initiatives inside your organization, but also those that that you're relying on for your goods and services to operate as well. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework is comprised of 108 controls that are spread over 5 different categories, which are identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover. NIST is actually in the process of making a pretty major update to the cybersecurity framework. That 2.0 version is slated to come out in February of next year. And the Cyber Florida instance that incorporates CSET will be updated in kind to reflect that major change to the NIST cybersecurity framework. In case you haven't been following that, one of the major updates to that is a new category known as governance, which is sort of interwound between all of the other categories. So the Cyber Florida folks are dedicated to sort of keeping current with all of their assessments, and so they're looking forward to updating the NIST cybersecurity framework within their assessment to stay lockstep with what NIST is doing on their end. The other set of questions, and Emilio alluded to this earlier, is the CISA ransomware readiness assessment, which is a self-assessment based on a tiered set of practices that help organizations better assess how well they are equipped to defend and recover from a ransomware incident. So this is tailored to varying levels of ransomware threat readiness and making it useful for all organizations, regardless of their current cybersecurity maturity. Upon completion of the assessment of both the NIST cybersecurity framework questions as well as the ransomware readiness assessment, organizations are presented with customized reports that provide actionable next steps that will allow them to prioritize how to address their weaknesses. Detailed references of each of the controls and questions are provided within the assessment. So those references, along with the customized set of results, make it a fairly straightforward process for organizations to have a prioritized list of actions that they can take to move forward with their potentially limited time and resources to improve their cybersecurity posture. So I encourage you to take advantage of the free cybersecurity assessment that Cyber Florida is providing to you. Again, as I mentioned just recently, whether you're a mature cyber secure organization with robust policies and controls, or maybe you're just looking to learn more about gaining understanding of where you are on the cybersecurity spectrum and want to learn where you can start, the Cyber Florida assessment can help you get there. And with that, I'll turn it back to Emilio.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, did you cover the entry assessment as well?
I did not, but we can certainly do that. I thought that was on the next slide. If you want to move the slide, I can certainly address that. Yeah, so as mentioned on this slide, now I'll turn it back over to Emilio to cover the rest of the Critical Infrastructure Protection Program. But one of the new enhancements that is recently going to be, or actually coming quite soon to the Cyber Florida Critical Infrastructure Cybersecurity Assessment is what we're calling the entry-level assessment. And so, as I mentioned before, the existing full assessment is comprised of those 108 questions from the NIST cybersecurity framework and around 55 on the ransomware readiness assessment. So you're looking at, maybe 150, 160 questions for the full assessment. Well, what we did is we dialed it back and we said, okay, we're going to take 15 questions from the NIST cybersecurity framework, and we're going to pair those with 5 of the basic level ransomware readiness controls, and we're going to create what we're calling the entry level assessment. So when you come into the Cyber Florida assessment now, you will see just a set of 20 questions that will sort of give you a flavor of how the system operates, paint a picture of your current cybersecurity posture, and provide you with a set of results that are tailored to how you answer those questions, and create that path forward for how you can become more mature within just those 20 questions. Upon completion of that entry-level assessment, then you'll be able to then open up the full assessment and answer the full suite of questions. Back to you, Emilio.
Thank you, Tim. So like you heard Tim mention, we have developed into a critical infrastructure protection program, also known as CIP program, here at Cyber Florida. And we're offering resources to local governments and entities like transportation sector organizations, opportunities to partner with us or to work with us, and we can offer templates for incident response plan. We can also cybersecurity awareness exercises, as well as education training. You'll hear from Jim in, I believe it's the next slide. I also want to talk about, we're discussing with Idaho National Lab the maturity model to add to the CSET tool. And the discussions and the hope is that we're going to be able to activate it in the first quarter of 24. There are some entities out there that have completed the survey and are asking for the maturity model. Now, the 156 questions you're answering currently are yes or no. There is no explanation or any kind of ratings. Once we turn on the maturity model, then for everything you answered yes to, you would basically on a scale of 1 to 7 determine your actual maturity based on that question. So it's a little bit more work, but it can get you a real good detail of your cybersecurity protections and your vulnerabilities and help focus a little more on where you should apply your resources to improve your cybersecurity. We're also working on helping you find solutions, whether it be training or resources to improve your cybersecurity score, and that you can make your system better protected and less vulnerable to cyber attacks. We're trying to develop a list of all the critical infrastructure in the state. We have heard from many of them that they really don't know what's out there. So we want to create some sort of a list that they can use, or we can point them to resources, whether it's online training or it's help with some of the programs that Idaho National Labs is providing. This is all an effort from the state sponsored programs that you can leverage in order to improve your systems. At the end of completing your survey, you can download your own set of reports, which gives you detail on your areas of weakness. And you can use those reports, take to your leadership, and it will justify your journey as where you need to focus your attention. Now I want to turn it over to Jim. Jim, please, can you talk about the education and training component?
Certainly. Thanks again, Emilio. Good morning, everyone. Again, I wanted to say one thing up front. Uh, in 2022, the legislature approved funding, which they provided to the Florida Center for Cybersecurity, also known as Cyber Florida, here at USF main campus in Tampa. Really, I think if this continues, need to label it a little different, because it's really education, awareness, and training. Education, teaching people, especially managers and executives, about what's important, and training, teaching people how to actually perform tasks associated with cybersecurity training, or with cybersecurity, I should say. So education and awareness for managers, executives, general staff, training for those people actually defending the networks, preparing the incident response plans and things like that. The legislation guided us to the extent possible, to use things that already existed, things that are already available in the state colleges and universities. Some people have asked, well, why didn't you just, get a bunch of licenses with one of the main providers, SANS, Coursera, others? We have not precluded that option where it's appropriate, but we went in accordance with the guidance and the appropriation, and partnered with the universities that were willing to do things in this arena. They're not part of the degree programs, not part of the credit courses, if you will, but you can get certificates, digital badges, and so forth for completing the courses. So what are they? The three main providers right now, the three main partners, and I'll talk about a couple others at the end. The three main partners are the University of South Florida, where we're hosted, University of West Florida, and Florida International down in Miami. University of West Florida, if you don't know, is in Pensacola. The Florida International University had some history in presenting classes like this for education and awareness. And their research showed that a lot of the city managers and others like to do it in person because it afforded networking opportunities. So right now they offer these in person at areas around the state, so people don't have to travel very far. They've partnered with other universities, University of North Florida, Florida Gulf Coast, and a few others, about 7 total, to do this, and make those 1- and 2-day classes available for managers, executives, city managers, people of that ilk. They've done 7 or 8 of these. They're starting next month. They'll also have a virtual version, because not everybody can afford the time to block out a day. The virtual version will be asynchronous. The University of West Florida out in Pensacola had some history under other grants providing education, awareness, and training to state and local government employees. And I should reiterate that this is for state, local, territorial, and tribal employees, all of them, all available to anyone in that category. Some people, you should know what category you're in, but it's not always apparent. For example, here at USF, Emilio and I are paid by USF, but we're Florida state employees, so all state and local government employees. The University of West Florida's forte was and is providing classes to those who work in technical roles. So most of their classes and their tabletop exercises are geared accordingly. So if you go through the asynchronous classes, you get ready to take the industry recognized certification exam for CompTIA Network Plus or one of the other CompTIA certifications, then give you a voucher and you can take the exam. The exam alone is usually $300 to $800. So all the classes and the cert exam are free to the students. I know in their first offering of the Network Plus class, they had to put people on a waiting list because it's very popular. So those are good deals, especially for the organizations that don't have a lot of resources in resource constrained counties and other parts of the state that might be a little more difficult to get those. The University of South Florida is doing a little bit of both. By that, I mean, they have virtual, self-paced, online, asynchronous classes. So if you are a manager or an executive in particular, and you really don't know what's important, and I mention that because, as Emilio knows, and Tim, in the assessments, a lot of people have revealed, about half of those who took the assessment actually revealed that they really don't know what they need to focus on in cybersecurity arena. These classes will help greatly in that regard. The one at USF has 5 modules. You can do 1 module at a time, take a day, 2 days, or a whole week to do it. It's self-paced. At the end, again, a badge that says you accomplished all those things that Florida Digital Service and others would expect you to be aware of as a manager or an executive or a member of the general staff. Sorry about that. They also offer other classes and tabletop exercises. We partner not only with colleges and universities as laid out in the legislation, the appropriation, but where individuals, organizations, state and local government organizations have requirements that may not be met or at least readily met by those universities, then we'll partner with someone else to meet those. Two quick examples. We're partnering with the National White Collar Cyber Crime Center, which is funded by the Department of Justice. And they'll be coming into Florida at least 6 different locations to present 3-day in-person classes to those who are involved in cybercrime investigations, all the techniques that you could use and tools that you might be able to use. Another example, elections next year, obviously. And so election security is a big concern. We're partnering with Norwich University, their Applied Research Institute has a tool that used for tabletop exercises to focus on all those things associated with election security. We'll be doing that with at least 8 different counties, including Hillsborough, where our university is. So more to follow on things like that. If there's other things, requirements that people have that are teased out by an assessment, or you just know that your organization is weak in certain areas, we'll take a look at that and we'll find a solution and fund the solution as long as the participants are state, local, territorial, or tribal employees. Similar to the risk assessment, having said all that, we can give advice to private organizations as well. So that's all I have to say. We'll be happy to entertain any questions as we go along. Thanks a lot, Amelia. Back to you.
Thank you, Jim. So the last thing, what's available to you? Well, you've heard quite a bit of information. We have a critical infrastructure risk assessment sponsored by the state, costs you nothing, is confidential. We are offering or developing an incident response plan so that you can begin your planning for when you get hit, because it's not a case of if, it's more like when you get hit. You'll have a plan in place that's approved by legal, approved by leadership, that you can execute with confidence if and when you get hit by cyber attack. You have the education and training piece that you can participate in to educate your workforce. Whatever your workforce learns at work, they can use the same practices at home. So there's a lot of stacking capabilities that we're offering to state and local employees so that they can improve their cybersecurity protections and thereby protect their homes and their businesses. There's also a grant program that's sponsored by the state of Florida that was just released in July last year, and it goes through June of next year. I mean, July this year, and it goes through June of next year. And you must participate in the Cyber Florida risk assessment in order to qualify for the grant program at the state of Florida, Florida Digital Services is providing. You can probably also apply for federal grant programs, but it's also a good idea to do a risk assessment when you apply for this grant, so that way you have a plan and a focus on the areas you're going to improve on. You can print, download, PDF your reports, share them with your leadership, hire a third-party provider to improve your cybersecurity postures. And a lot of this that we're doing is going to help you meet the standard of House Bill 7055, which talks about risk assessments, talks about training, cybersecurity education. So a lot of these counties have to attest that they meet the standards, incident response plan. There's a lot of information that's packed into that House bill, and we're working hard to help these entities meet their requirements based on that House bill. So in summary, you see what we are fully engaged in. We provide risk assessment training. We have a cyber range. We didn't talk that much about it. Jim might be able to say a few words about it after I'm done with this slide. But cyber range is something that we hope to get online by late December or early 24. We're doing workforce development work at the local school districts, training and education, capacity building, and we're statewide resources, providing resources to both public and private sector entities. This is the conclusion of this deck and this presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thanks everyone. I wanted to see, I didn't see in the presentation, or maybe I missed it, where someone can go to access the assessment. So I don't know if someone wants to maybe put a link in chat, or you could even maybe bring up your website on the screen to show everyone. All right, there you go. So Kiriana, they just put the link in chat. Maybe you can put that in the chat for everyone on the line here. That'd be great.
Will do.
All right, very good. All right, so some of the questions that we got in from our attendees today. So how can local transportation systems prepare for the increasing risk of cyber threats, considering the vulnerabilities that you mentioned in the presentation? Are there any specific measures or tools that can be adopted to enhance the resilience of our local transportation networks?
Yeah, I can take that, Amelia, if you'd like.
Okay.
Go first. Yeah, so I think one of the main things that you can do is, well, first take the assessment, right? Because you need to sort of have an understanding of, you know, where you currently are on the cybersecurity spectrum, right? So do you know what all of your assets are? You can't protect what you don't know that you have, right? So I think fundamentally having an understanding of all of your inventory, anything that's connected to your network. Do you know what that is? And do you know, are they patched? Are they all of your devices? Take a look at your networks from the outside. What do you look like to an adversary? Hopefully your footprint in terms of what you look like from the outside is as minimal as possible. So those are some of the things that the assessment will guide you through in terms of, hey, you know, what are the controls that we need to have in place? The other thing is information sharing, having an understanding of what the current threats are. CISA has, and I'll provide a link in the chat. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency have a myriad of free services to critical infrastructure sectors, to include transportation. They'll come and do various exercises with you, to include penetration testing. So they'll come in as an adversary would and tell you, hey, this is what we're finding on instances such as Shodan, which is a website that lists all externally facing devices grouped by, you know, the type of device it is. So you want to go know if your webcams are externally facing. CISA will tell you that, and they'll tell you how to protect it. So those are some of the things that I think you can do to help, I guess, make yourself more secure. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Tim. I'll just add that at Cyber Florida, the risk assessment team, we have met with CISA representatives in Florida. We are working together. They conduct risk assessments, and we conduct a risk assessment, which is specific and unique to Florida. What we're going to do with our findings is we're going to draft a report, and we're going to send it to the legislature and send recommendations and solutions that they can apply to make Florida safer and better protected against cyber attacks. All the information you put into the CSET tool is going to the server at USF. So we are the custodians of the information. We are aggregating that data, and we're drilling it down to actions and findings. And that's what we're sending to the state of Florida. The governor, the Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, and the Cyber Florida Advisory Council to take action. Other things that many people can do is, and we talked with CISA about it, do the risk assessment, download the reports, contact CISA, and they can come to your center, your area, and help you interpret some of the results, even direct you to some resources to help you improve your systems. Thank you.
All right, very good. I'm wondering, can I share the page that you showed earlier so we can walk people through how to access the assessment?
Absolutely.
All right, great. So let me share my screen here. So you should see the website. So where on here would people go to participate in the assessment?
Scroll up.
Scroll up.
Continue.
Okay.
I always get these directions mixed up.
It's the topmost. It's the topmost
Up here?
menu item, I believe.
Okay.
Research and grants.
Under research and grants, all right.
Go down to Cyber Florida, Cybersecurity Florida SIP program.
Okay.
And you see training. Those are the two links. So you want to go to the bottom of the page.
Excellent.
There
So right here.
Yes, that blue banner right there is where it'll take you to the risk assessment.
All right, very good.
That other link that you showed at the top would take you to the training page.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we will put both of these in chat so everyone has those readily available. I just wanted to walk everyone through how to access those. So let's move on to our next question. So what role does employee training play in safeguarding transportation systems against cyber attacks? Are there specific training programs or guidelines recommended to ensure staff are well equipped to recognize and respond to potential threats?
So I can take that one. The class is offered actually by all three universities. If on our website, I think there's about 29 or so now, and the ones that are for executives, managers, or general staff, there's several of them in there. That gets back to the education awareness, making sure people are aware of things they should be paying attention to. As a manager, for example, or an executive, you should at least know what patches are and updates. The National Security Agency, to get back to my old job, has two missions. Everyone's kind of familiar with the Foreign Signals Intelligence mission, but they're also the U.S. government lead for information assurance and cybersecurity. And too often we find out with the federal government that, but also with other local governments, the hackers, the people who did ransomware, whatever they did, didn't really have to be that sophisticated. The network, the patches weren't made, updates weren't made. They didn't have anything to educate their employees about not clicking on bad links and so on and so forth. So just knowing something about those things and what to watch out for is good. The last thing I would say, and it's pointed out in some of these classes, is I think it gets back to, I believe it was Tim or Emilio said earlier, you got to look at the weakest link. If you're doing business as a government entity in Florida and you have a lot of contractors, but they don't have good systems, then that's not good. And also the contracts that you have with them should stipulate that if they know they've been hacked, they have to tell you because they're connected to your network. So just some things to think about. And again, some of the offerings cover these things in more detail.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. And some of the findings from our risk assessment actually teased out that some of the work roles that need improvement are in the management area. So that's your IT managers, OT managers, but it's also HR managers, procurement managers, accounting managers, and that a lot of them don't have a good understanding about cybersecurity components, cybersecurity practices, and hiring cybersecurity talent. So there's some definite areas for improvement in the management level in all these organizations.
All right, that's excellent. Another question that came through, could you provide, do you have any examples of successful cybersecurity initiatives that have been implemented in other transportation sectors or regions?
Tim, do you have an example?
Not necessarily in the transportation sector, but I have been involved with several different studies in other sectors that have leveraged the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is the one of the core aspects of the Cyber Florida assessment. And what they were able to do is establish a baseline of where they were sort of when the assessment started, right? And then identify, okay, what are the things that we can do today to make ourselves more secure, come up with a plan, implement that plan, and then reassess themselves on a recurring basis. And so the system is set up such that you can create as many assessments as you like for as many services as you like. And so one of the things that we didn't touch on during the presentation, I think it's important to note, is that the assessment should be done for each of the critical services that you're running, right? So if you're working at a county and you have a water system and a transportation system or a parking garage or what have you, each of those systems may have different controls implemented in them, right? So having a tailored assessment for each of those critical cyber services, establishing a baseline, improving that baseline based on the recommendations that the tool will provide you, and then reassessing will help you work towards becoming more secure and resilient.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, great. Earlier, I think you had mentioned cyber. I'm sorry, what was it? Cyber range. Can you talk a little bit more about what that is?
Sure, I'll take that one. We also received funding from the state to set up a cyber range. We were in the process of selecting the winner, if you will, the vendor. That should be announced very shortly. That range will be focused on primarily state and local government usage, although state employees can participate as well. There's already a state Florida Digital Service sponsored range primarily for those involved in incident response. So ours will be for state and local government employees, but primarily local government. It will include a library, if you will, of online classes, self-paced online classes. It will include an opportunity to do, for those familiar with the terms, to do red team, blue team, or good guy, bad guy scenarios, where you can actually go in an insulated environment and practice your trade, if you will. So capture the flag, you've heard of some of those things. So it's going to be a really good deal. We've hired a range manager who has a vast wealth of experience, Dr. Bruce Calkins, who was working at University of Central Florida. Now he's here with Cyber Florida. So that should be out on our website as soon as we get the green light to announce who the winner is. But hopefully no later than the end of this month.
All right, that sounds great. Another question we have, so what are the common cybersecurity attacks that local transportation agencies should be aware of? And could installing something like an antivirus program, help? And are there any good free ones available out there?
Yeah, so if I heard the question right, and what are some of the free services out there that you can leverage? I dropped the link in the chat. Hopefully you can provide that to everyone of the list of services that CISA can provide. Certainly you want to be running antivirus, anti-malware on all of your systems. There are free versions of that. Certainly that will help. And so, yeah, take a look at the broad range of services that CISA offers. They're not going to promote any one particular product per se, but they do offer services themselves in terms of, like I had said before, they'll do, they'll scan the perimeter of your network from the outside. They'll come in and help you conduct other types of assessments and provide other services.
All right, great. And I think another, oh yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you so much. I work with Emilio on the Cyber Florida risk assessment. I had the good fortune of being the director of Homeland Security for Indiana for a couple of years and working on defense development. And the reason I bring that up was to go back to your previous question about transportation sectors and best practices. I would say to you that if you sit in your role looking at cyber, look at it as a blue sky event as well. So for instance, if you leverage your emergency operations centers or your ESF 20s, the question you have to look at from a consequence management perspective to include transportation is, are you all discussing what you would do in a cyber attack, in an incident? Who is responsible? Who's going to take the lead point in terms of communicating to the public? If your traffic center goes down, who's going to be responding and why? So it's not just resting on the laurels of the IT director or the IT person. In all due respect, everybody has a game to play here. But the successes I've seen across different states and commonwealths and territories is where you have an all hazards approach to discussing cybersecurity perfunctory at the executive management level. And then really taking the things that you've done as a best practice of preparing for a event, weather event or whatever it may be, and applying that same consistency to a cyber attack. Because a cyber attack can happen hundreds of times a day without you knowing it. But once the lights turn off, your ability to communicate to the public, for instance, from a safety perspective, who's going to be doing that on your end? So the successes I've seen is inherent collaboration and just having the discussion with your senior leadership team about cyber and the roles and responsibilities we all share in responding to a cyber attack. Those are some of the best practices I've seen is coming out granularly from the emergency operations centers, from the ESF 20 positions, making sure that someone is talking to the executive leadership team. So it's really an ownership on all of us that have those conversations. And the ownership that I see work very well is when people really stand up and start addressing things when they have a question or concern.
All right, that's great. And I think you answered my next question I had too. So I think that probably wraps us up for questions right now. So I think at this point in time, I'd like to give each of you an opportunity for some closing remarks, any topics that we missed, or any questions that you heard you wanted to provide some additional information for. So volunteers to go first.
I'll say something.
Go ahead.
You know, I wanted to underscore a little bit about the what I'll call the education and awareness as compared to training. I spent most of my adult life, as a manager and an executive, and to underscore the point made by the CSET, it says about half the managers and executives don't recognize what's important. So those classes are out there. It shouldn't take more than a couple hours of someone's time, and that'll be a big help, because previous to the advent of cyber, the two main things that managers and executives worried about was money and security. Now, if you don't know if your networks are working, I can tell you from my own recent experience, General Nakasone, who's the director of NSA and the leader at US Cybercom and at Special Operations Command, where I was the NSA representative, the 4-star there, the first thing on their slide for their updates is, what's the status of our networks? And so it's front and center, and you need to know what's important.
All right, thanks, Jim. Tim, why don't we go to you next?
Yeah, sure. So on the heels of that, I would say that yes, understanding the status, that's excellent. Take advantage of this self-assessment, right? One of the things that we've seen in the it's been about a year, right, Brian and Emilio? One of the things that we've seen come up is who should come in and answer these questions, right? And so I would say that if you're not familiar with how things operate within your IT and OT systems, make sure that you're involving the appropriate people, right? Get the folks that are actually hands-on keyboard, work as a team to come in and make sure that you're answering these questions as openly and honestly as you can to create that baseline to ensure that you're constantly working to become more secure and resilient. Create that baseline assessment, come in and do it on a routine basis every 6 months, every 12 months, what have you. And it's constant improvement. It never ends. As Emilio stated at the beginning, everyone's a target these days. So just we can't bury our head in the sands on this anymore. It's probably not a question of if but when for everybody, and we have to operate as such. So take advantage of the resources we talked about today, and never stop.
All right, very good. And I'm just going in order as you appear on my screen. So Emilio, we'll go to you next.
Well, Kariana, thank you. Kristen, thank you as well. Jim, Tim, Brian, thanks for participating on this panel. Basically, I just want to say everyone in the state needs to get trained. Everyone in the state needs to become aware of cybersecurity. You saw on one of the slides about 80 to 90% of all cyber attacks are because of human-machine interface. Someone clicked on something that was a bad link. We all need to be trained how to recognize those bad links, those bad emails, suspicious emails. It's not a matter of if, like Tim said, it is when we get hit with a cyber attack. This initiative we're working on is the first of its kind. No other state has tried to do a comprehensive statewide 16 sector, 54 subsector critical infrastructure risk assessment, and put that together in a report, send it to state leaders, and then tell them, here, do something, make the state safer. So that is my advice. Everyone needs to get trained on cybersecurity. Everyone needs to understand their vulnerabilities. Everyone needs to get involved so we can make Florida safer. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Emilio. And Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Two quick things. You're not alone. So regardless of where you sit, if you're the HR person, if you're a communicator, if you don't have a background in cybersecurity, we're all impacted by cyber incidences. And we see it on a daily occurrence. So you're not alone, which means the second point is leverage the resources that are made available to you by the state, by the federal government, to make informed decisions. As you complete the risk assessment, you are now given an opportunity to develop a baseline approach of what your needs are from an all hazards perspective, because you still need to involve training, response, recovery, mitigation, the emergency management components. if you take that information that's provided to you with the risk assessment, you have done a couple of things. First and foremost, you can address the legal questions that may arise about what you would do. Second of all, you can talk to your risk insurers about some of the things that you're looking to do. This is informed decision making. The other thing you can do is you can engage your executive leadership, your city council members, or whoever it may be that holds the purse strings, to document the things that you're doing that the state has given to you because it's done for free. That gives you great ability to make the business case for what you're trying to do to either change the culture or just prepare for things, or just even ask a question: what happens if during a blue sky event, the power goes out, your inability to communicate with the public and or public safety officials? The risk assessment gives you the baseline to make informed decisions. That is inherently powerful and much needed information. So please leverage the resources that are available to you. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, thanks to all of you for being here, providing this great information. Really appreciate it. We will be getting an email out to all of our attendees with the links that we've provided in the chat here, so you have those available. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap things up for today. If you have any questions that arise after this session or need any resources, you can reach out to the folks at Cyber Florida at the website, or you can reach out to LTAP, and we'll be glad to direct your question to them. So hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next Florida LTAP webinar. Take care.